Hi everyone, I'm Tara and this is Anamnesis.
The objective of this podcast is to share knowledge, compare ideas, and apply the dialectic of Socrates. All this focus on how philosophy is related to science.
Does anyone think about how we started recollecting and having information of how organisms work, the structure of a cell, and also what is our purpose in the world? In order to solve these questions, we will have the companion of two important guests, Joan Gutierrez and Ali Espejel. Both are biotechnology engineering students at Universidad Politécnica Metropolitana de Puebla. Joan, Ali, welcome to Anamnesis.
Hello, Taira. Thanks for having me.
Well, Tyra, I'm pretty happy to receive your invitation to your podcast. I found it really interesting.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to have you here. Let's begin with a simple question. What do you think about philosophy? Because many people don't know about it and they think that it's something with less importance than other areas like science. But the truth is that they are closely linked.
First of all, I think it is always a good time to talk about topics like philosophy and science and how they relate between one another. I mean, remembering who were the most relevant philosophers and what they did for the society should be something to keep in mind.
I have to say that it's quite interesting that nowadays young people are more interested in topics such as philosophy and science. That's incredible.
Well, once we know that you're familiar with this relationship, we will talk about the main topic that gathered us today, the scientific and philosophical contributions of great thinkers. What do you think about it?
I think that this topic is not so easy to discuss because philosophy and science have always been complex science. The former, as you may know, is the study of general and fundamental questions such as those about existence, reason, and knowledge. The latter is a pursuit of knowledge covering general truths or the operations of fundamental laws. Personally, I believe every single science has its philosophical part.
Well, as John previously mentioned, I think that talking about contribution from great thinkers is something extremely broad. However, I have always thought that through philosophy, stands out not because of the answers, but because of the questions you may ask. This is how you ask questions like, where do we come from? Where do we go? Who are we? They are important part of the great contributions, I think.
I fully understand that point. Of course, philosophy emanates from doubt, and in the question lies the soul of philosophy. I know that it's something complex, and that perhaps mentioning that one contribution is more important than another somehow detracts from the work or legacy from other thinkers.
Of course, however, I can say that following my instincts as a future engineer and scientist, I have total admiration for Thales of Miletus, considered the first Greek philosopher and the first scientist of ancient Greece. Something that fascinates me is that he introduced the arche, which means the origin of everything, of life, of the universe, the beginning of something. The fact of questioning the origin of all led to the formulation of hypotheses about the contribution of matter and its origin, giving us an answer that matter was made of small particles of fragments or something small of water. Perhaps nowadays it sounds illogical to think, but this led to the creation of the first atomic models, which Dalton maybe would later take as a reference for the formulation of atomic theory.
This is an extremely interesting way of looking at the fact that philosophy is ultimately the mother of all science. Thanks to asking the correct questions, they started to discover the reason for many phenomena.
I completely agree with Tyra's point. In fact, due to the philosophical questions asked by Thales of Miletus, such as why this event in nature happened or why do things tend to change, the main scientific contributions from him took place. For instance, here earthquake theory, which concedes that the cause of earthquakes is the earth floats on water. Although this theory is wrong, Thales of Miletus contributed to think rationally through the hypothesis that is part of the scientific method.
Exactly that. Thales of Miletus saw the precedents of science from contributions such as his theorems, the demonstration of Greek mathematics, as well as the first Greek physicist and astronomer. Let's think about chaos theory for a moment. Let's think that Thales of Miletus would not have existed. How many years would it have taken for someone in Greece to discover mathematical proof, geometry, astronomy, etc.? Greek geometry has led us to understand things as abstract as symmetry, which makes up the world, but in counterpart we have superasymmetry that has led us to understand entropy, singularity, the expansion of the universe, and understand that the universe is a universe untidy.
That's intense. Speaking of the origin of the universe simply, science, when you think of the atom, you think of the Big Bang. Atoms that collided and formed an expansive way that will form the universe that we know today. Others claim that the Big Bang is nothing more than the product of a state of zero entropy from a previous universe that got contracted.
That's a very interesting way of seeing the origin of the universe. The Big Bang theory is the most accepted and popular one about how our universe was created. Now, returning to the perspective of ancient Greece, the Presocratics proposed that matter was not water, but fire or air. It is also how we met the great Aristotle, whose answers were extremely crazy. But the questions he asked himself, well, they were amazing, being the first to propose the Earth as a sphere of matter composed of the four elements water, earth, fire, and air, and that it was constituted by a force that attracted bodies to its center and that all bodies fell based on their size or weight. The same way as Thales of Miletus' earthquake theory, it was not true. However, it helped the discovery of gravity in Newton's law of universal gravitation, for example.
That's an excellent way of illustrating it. In fact, think about how thanks to thinking about the shape of the Earth, the flat Earth is eliminated and although they thought that the Earth was the center of the universe, imagine the potential that Eratosthenes had managed to calculate the radius of the Earth and after that, Nicolas Copernicus discovers that we are not the center of the universe, which turned 1,000 years of beliefs into a fallacy and breaks even religion paradigms. Speaking of the case like Giordano Bruno, totally insane.
It is definitely amazing the way how different philosophers work together indirectly to discover a couple of things. Where do we come from? And how we can describe our surroundings in order to answer that question. Now, let's move on. We have been talking about the philosophical and scientific contribution of ancient philosophers. But what about modern philosophers? Who are they? What did they do? Joan, can you tell us a little bit more about this, please?
Sure. Well, we need to think of René Descartes, for example. He was a philosopher and mathematician considered as the father of modern philosophy for defining a well known starting point for existence. I quote, I think, therefore I am. From my point of view, this statement represents the sense that every individual has. That is, there is no doubt that we exist because we are capable of thinking. So, René Descartes sought to uncover the meaning relationship of the natural world with a rational approach based on philosophy and science, you know?
That sounds fantastic. The way I see is that René Descartes not only contributed to the philosophy with his famous philosophical statement, but also with a fundamental investigation such as Cartesian geometry in mathematics and his laws of refraction in physics, which are extremely important even nowadays due to the impact when understanding and learning common phenomena like the movement of certain waves passing from one medium to another.
You're definitely correct, Ali. Moreover, Descartes introduced other concepts. For example, he developed an empirical understanding of rainbows, and he proposed a naturalistic account of the formation of the solar system. What is particularly amazing is that he started working on all those concepts based on his philosophical ideology. I think, therefore, I am. It proves that, as we said before, philosophy is the mother of all sciences. If philosophy exists, thoughts also exist. And if thoughts exist, the rest of science exists.
Rene Descartes was and still is an excellent example about how we use philosophy to answer and explain our world. We should not forget that the most important goal of philosophy is to ask the correct questions that, in some way or other, bring us more closer to knowing where we come from, where we go, and who we are. Now, returning to our ancient philosophers, we are forgetting to mention one who is extremely important in this topic. So, does anyone know who I'm talking about?
I think not.
Either.
The one who I am referring to is Pythagoras of Samos. I would like to talk about him because he's a leading figure in philosophy and science as well. In philosophy, something called Pythagoreanism is the philosophy that Pythagoras described. To put it into a nutshell, it refers to the doctrines and theories of Pythagoras and the Pythagoreans, who developed some basic principles of mathematics and astronomy. Um, Additionally, they believe in metempsychosis, which is supposed to be the transmigration at death of the soul of a human being or animal into a new body, maybe of the same or different species. It could be argued that this way of thinking is a little weird. However, it has been the basis to think about what happens after death. What happens with our soul? Where does it go?
That's true. Talking about the contributions of Pythagoras to astronomy, he believed that the Earth, planets, and stars were all circled in a central flame. Also, this belief led that night and day were caused by the movement of the planets. For him, the focal point of the universe must be fire.
Moreover, one of the most important contributions that we use every day in mathematics is his theorem. He also proved other axioms, worked on prime and composite numbers and found an irrational number.
Sorry to interrupt you, but today we run out of time. Let's continue another day with the second part of the scientific and philosophical contributions of great thinkers. Thanks, John and Ali, for sharing your knowledge and your point of view. We will be happy to have you here another day.